So it's now time to invite our first speaker to the stage. It's a virtual speaker and it is Henrik Larsson-Broman, and he's coming in from Sweden and he's going to talk to us about improving sales. Welcome, Henrik.
Thank you very much, Gavin, for having me. All right, thank you, Gavin, for the introduction, and thank you for having me at this event. So the topic I will talk about today is a topic that I have been exploring and analyzing and speaking about for many years: the future state of sales. In other words, what will the future of sales look like? But before I dive into this topic, I would like to start this session by telling you a short story. And this story goes back to 1942 when Dr. Albert Einstein was teaching at the Oxford University. And one day he gave an exam to his senior class of physics students. And when he was walking down the campus with his assistant, the assistant suddenly stopped him and said, "Dr. Einstein, the exam that you just gave to the senior class of physics students, wasn't that exactly the same exam you gave to exactly the same class 1 year ago?" Yeah, Dr. Einstein replied. "It is exactly the same." "But Dr. Einstein, how could you do that?" the assistant said. "Well," Dr. Einstein said, "the answers have changed." In other words, what was true for 1942 is also true for today. We live in a world where the questions might be the same, but the answers have changed. In other words, what have got you here will no longer get you there. And if you want to have results, you have to start doing things and learning things you have never done before. So, why this story? Well, this story tells us a lot about how trends are born. Trends arise when new innovations and ideas meet a basic human need in a new way. In other words, trends are indicators of people's new habits, expectations, and behaviors, meaning that they give us new answers on the same questions. For almost 20 years, I have studied and analyzed business trends that are giving us new answers on how to run our businesses. And many of them is presented in my book of Super Trends. But which of all these trends do business executives consider most critical for their organizations to stay competitive in the future? Well, to find out, we at Mercury International Research initiated a research project last year that we called the Future State of Sales. In our survey, more than 1,000 business executives around the world answered our survey, which gave us a list of the 10 most critical trends in B2B sales. And today I have chosen to share 5 of these trends with you. 5 trends that CEOs, sales and marketing directors finds critical for the future businesses. Now, let me present them to you briefly. And let me start the first trend with a short story. In the beginning of 2020, many companies was hard hit by the coronavirus outbreak. One of them was the Chinese cosmetics company Lin Xingwan, who lost nearly 90% of their sales in the beginning of the year. However, in 5 days, they managed to go from store sales to online sales and e-commerce with the help of Alibaba. And in addition to that, they redeployed its 100 beauty advisors from those stores to become online sales reps using digital tools such as WeChat to engage customers virtually and drive online sales. And Lin Xingwan not only managed to prevent a crisis here. In fact, they increased sales by 200% compared to the previous year. And how is this possible? Well, this is an example of a company that quickly changed their sales model to fit into the rising filter economy. So what do I mean by the filter economy? Well, the filter economy can be described as an economy where the majority of all human-to-human sales interactions take place in different physical spaces. using a digital filter between them, just like we are doing right now. And we all know that this is nothing new. But the question is, what will it look like in the new normal that we are now entering? Well, let me try to answer this question by showing you some interesting data on this. This graph shows the proportion of inside and outside B2B sales reps in Europe. Between 2013 and 2019, the proportion of inside sales reps grew from 35 to 42%, while the number of outside sales reps decreased from 65 to 57%. And according to surveys, this trend is expected to continue to grow the coming years. And these salespeople, representing inside sales here, they already work in the filter economy, as they do business from a distance. But what happens? What happens if we add the time outside sales reps spend on filter conversations? Well, then it gets interesting, because then we get an overview of how extensive the filter economy is. So look at this chart now. From 2013 to 2019, the filter economy grew from 50 to 70% to reach the highest level ever at 94% in 2020 and 21. And our prediction is that in the new normal, we will end at around 80%, meaning that 4 out of 5 of all human-to-human sales interactions will be based on filter conversations, even in complex sales. So is this permanent? Yes, I believe so. And why do I believe so? Well, research shows that most B2B buyers have already changed their expectations on this. According to McKinsey, 70 to 80% of all B2B buyers now say they prefer filter conversations before in-person meetings, citing ease of scheduling and increased productivity as the main reasons. And all these findings tells us one important thing. Remote selling is here to stay, and salespeople cannot simply go back to the old way of doing things. The post-pandemic world will be a combination of offline and online. Another trend that is also on the rise is the trend time to make self-service a B2B sales strategy. In the consumer world, this trend has been going on for a long time. We have committed ourselves to do more and more ourselves. Everything from doing research on products to comparing, watching reviews, ordering and installing the products we buy. And this consumer behavior has gradually shifted into B2B and is now strongly influencing our sales strategy beyond 2022. And let me start by showing you some interesting stats here. This graph shows that in 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, the number of B2B buyers who say they prefer self-service has increased with almost 80%, from 35 to 62%. And today, the customers' expectations are probably even higher, as almost 3 out of 4 decisions makers now believe self-service is more important to customers than traditional sales interactions. And self-service is not only about e-commerce platforms. During the pandemic, consumption of do-it-yourself content has accelerated dramatically. Look at these mind-blowing statistics here. Consumption of thought leadership content has gone up with 34%. Reading executive summaries is up by 267%. Blogs, do-it-yourself videos, podcasts, handbooks, online reviews, e-commerce, etc. are all on the rise. We do more and more on our own without consulting with a salesperson. And when we see numbers like this, we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean to us? Do we make it easy for the buyer to access information on their own through the buying journey? And how will this impact the way we will do business in the coming years? A related trend to the self-service trend, and that also gives us new answers on what to do, and that business executives say they have to get ready for, is the age of sales automation. So what do I mean by sales automation? Well, sales automation refers to the fact that the future of sales will be highly automated. Not necessarily that it will replace salespeople, but rather complement the sales team so they can focus less on admin and more on selling. And there are a lot of tools that can help us do that. So just have a look at this map here showing the explosion of sales automation tools. Today, we have more than 1,100 sales tech applications aimed at accelerating sales productivity. And this is an increase of more than 500% in the last 4 years, showing that sales tech is on the rise and will continue to accelerate the coming years. Now, of course, it's not easy to navigate this landscape. Maybe that's why you have this conference. But here there are endless of opportunities for the one with a creative mind. Let me therefore show you some interesting examples, and you will surely have some other examples during this morning. Given that the filter economy is here to stay, what if we could record and analyze all customer conversations via, for example, Zoom, in real time, revealing why deals are won and lost? Wouldn't that be great? Well, this is what Chorus does. It's like a virtual coach that uses artificial intelligence to break down a 1-hour call into a 5-minute highlight actionable feedback to the salesperson and its manager. And it gives us answers to questions like, does the salesperson talk too much or too fast? Does the salesperson ask engaging questions? Does the salesperson interrupt the customer, etc.? And this can be really helpful in times when we need to understand how to engage customers from a distance. Another tool that can be useful when you, for example, want to invite your contacts on LinkedIn to a conference or a webinar like this, why not use the tool Duck's Soup? Duck's Soup automates messages to my selected contacts on LinkedIn, a task that is extremely boring and time-consuming when done manually. But what if we could also automate the copy of the invitation when we use a tool like this? Well, this is what the tool Phrase does. It uses machine learning to generate and optimize copywriting in emails so people open, click, and convert more often. Furthermore, what if we could also automate email conversations with potential clients that actually responded to our copywriting? Well, this is what the tool Conversica does. It's like a customized virtual sales assistant that automatically contacts, engages, and follows up with leads via email conversations until the lead converts into an opportunity and then hand it over to the sales rep. All right, there are plenty of examples of sales automation tools that can help us get ready for the age of sales automation. But we have to be aware and we have to be creative and trial and error. So my fourth trend today, and that business executives consider critical and that will be highly important in the future, may not come as a surprise, as it is a trend that has been going on for a long time. Customer value orientation. The challenge of moving from a product-centric to a buyer-centric sales organization. In our survey, 85% of business executives say that this trend is the most critical trend of them all to stay competitive in the future. 85%. And that this is a trend can easily be proved by a simple search on Google Trends. It shows that we right now have reached all-time high. Never before have so many thought answer to the question, what is customer value? So why is this? Well, this can be explained by a movement that we have been following for many years, the changing logics of how customers buy. With the results from our survey, we can now state once and for all that the traditional way of selling are on the verge of extinction. In fact, today only 12% of the total average revenue comes from traditional product sales. And this is expected to continue to decrease to 10% in the next 3 years. Instead, the revenue from complex value-based selling is increasing over time. Today, more than half of the revenue comes from this type of selling, which is expected to increase to over 60% in the next 3 years. And this is a fundamental shift changing the nature of sales. But what does it mean in practice? And what do business executives consider are the most challenging drivers of moving from a product-centric to a buyer-centric sales organization? Well, according to the respondents in our survey, there are 5 critical drivers that needs to be addressed in order to create customer value. And the first critical driver is to become better at creating customer unique solutions. 49% of the respondents claim this is crucial. Secondly, bring new insights based on research and trends to the customer. Thirdly, gain a deeper understanding of the customer's industry and how the customer buy. Fourthly, educate, inspire, and challenge the customer to change. And finally, in the top, be proactive and anticipate customers' future problems. And these 5 drivers tells us a lot about what most companies are struggling with and what they will prioritize in the future. So the last trend that I want to share with you today, and that also are on the top 10 list of the most critical trend, is a trend that I call the new era of sales skills transformation. As a result of these disruptive changes, sales and marketing are facing major when it comes to upgrading their employees in skills needed now and beyond 2022. But why do I believe that this is so important and that this is a huge challenge? Well, there are many signs of this shift. First of all, a recent survey from Gartner found that 58% of the total workforce will need new skills to get their job done, which means that many companies will be forced to invest heavily in upskilling and reskilling the coming years. At the same time, World Economic Forum have come to the conclusion that the half-life of professional skills have gone from about 10 to 15 years to only 5 years today. And this means that the knowledge and skills that you acquire today will be worth only half as much in 5 years. For some industries, it's even shorter, with a half-life of skills in only 2 to 3 years. And this is also the reason why many major organizations have started launching ambitious upskilling and reskilling efforts to prepare for the future. For example, in March 2019, the multinational investment bank JP Morgan unveiled a 5-year, $350 million commitment to curbing the global skill gap and preparing today's workers for higher technical skills. 4 months later, the e-commerce giant Amazon pledged to spend $700 million to retrain 100,000 employees in order to adapt to an economy increasingly disrupted by automation and new technology. And shortly after that, PricewaterhouseCoopers announced that it is investing a whopping $3 billion to upskill all of its 257,000 workers. And the decision was made since there have been apparent that there is a huge mismatch between the skills people have today and those needed for a digital world. But what does this mean to all of us in sales? how big is the challenge for today's sales and marketing functions? Well, in our survey, 90% of all executives report existing skills gap within the sales and marketing function. And another 85% expect the skills gap to get worse in the next 3 years. Furthermore, as many as 84% of executives say it's urgent to close the skill gap. But what skills do sales and marketing organizations lack the most? Well, of course, there are several skills that needs reskilling or upskilling. But this is what the respondents in our survey say. The skill that most companies are lacking is social selling. 45% of executives claim that their salespeople are lacking skills in engaging prospects using social media like LinkedIn. Another 42% say they lack the right skills in value-based selling. 37% say they lack the right skills in how to use. 38% say they lack the right skills in value-based selling. And 37% say they lack the right skills in how to use sales automation tools. And another 34% say they lack the right skills in remote or hybrid sales. And all these numbers indicates one important thing. Sales skills transformation will become an increasingly strategic question for management in the future. So, to summarize what I have said today, many trends are shaping the future of sales. Today, I have shared 5 of the 10 trends that business executives consider critical for the businesses to stay competitive in the future. And if you want to learn more about these trends, or many of the other trends that we have found in our research, you are welcome to download the full report on mercury.net/the future state of sales. There you can read about all the 10 trends. And you can also download my book of super trends, in which I present 50 sales and marketing trends. And this you can download on mercury.net/insights/supertrends. So with that being said, let the trend be your friend, and thank you very much for listening. And you're welcome to ask me any questions on LinkedIn. So over to you, Gavin.
Henrik, hi, thank you very much. That was fabulous. Really, really interesting. Really enjoyed it. And for an old dinosaur like myself, it's great to hear about all the new trends that are coming through. So I've got a couple of specific questions for you. We don't have a huge amount of time, but I'd really like to ask a couple of questions that came into my head as I was going through. Obviously, I recognize these 5 trends and the way things are changing. And I think there are some people who are quite dinosaurish in a way. So over the last 2 years, we've all been working remotely from home and we've all been behind the computers. But one of the messages that I've heard over and over again from salespeople, from sales managers, from sales leaders, it's kind of a 2-pronged message. And the first message is, I can't wait to get back out there and everything go back to normal. And the second one is because it's much, much easier and better selling face to face. And obviously what you're saying is that it ain't going back and that they need to get a grip of it. So what would your advice to those people who are holding on to that idea be?
So what a great question, because that is something that I also hear, and it's a huge challenge for many companies. First of all, it will be a hybrid model. We will not stop meeting customers face to face, but we will be very, very selective. It's only when you have to be creative, that you really have to build relationship and stuff like that, that you have to meet in person. So with that being said, it's very important to understand that in sometimes we have to meet the customer, but the majority of all meetings will be digital or virtual. So the question you asked here, what can we do about it? And what message do we send here? Well, I think that there is a slight problem here that many salespeople don't like the way we have to do business in the future. I mean, many people are social animals. They want to meet people in person. So I think that many salespeople will leave from this type of sales or find a job that we can meet in person. That's I think is a fact. But otherwise, we have to train and we have to learn and inspire people to conduct meetings virtual, and that is classic change management in how you do that. So maybe a fluffy answer to your question, but I think that it's a great question that we all have to ask ourselves in our organization.
So my second question has actually changed based on your answer to that one, which is great. So are you saying then, do you think, that the actual profile of a salesperson is changing? Because I think one of the dinosaur things that people like myself have been saying maybe up until about 5 years ago is that we've got this challenge because salespeople hide behind their keyboard and they won't pick the phone up anymore and they don't want to see anybody. And I laugh because I asked to borrow my niece's phone the other day to ring somebody, and I went onto the front screen and the phone wasn't even on the front screen. It was on about screen 3 because she does not use her phone as a phone. And are we in fact saying that actually they are the future of sales and that we need to adapt to that? And if so, what would your one recommendation, because we're quite short of time, what would your one recommendation be to an employer out there or a business owner out there to start to create that culture?
First of all, it's not one profile when we talk sales. I mean, it's like an explosion of different profiles and roles that we are heading. So I think that we need more skills, but we also need different kinds of roles that to address challenge. So it's very important to understand that yes, the profile is changing, and all the trends that I have mentioned today, like automation, self-service, value-based selling, etc., is changing the nature of sales. But also you have a fundament that is built on trust and relationship and stuff like that. Sales is of course about human interactions. So there are some skills that are basic, but on top of that, we have new skill sets that are changing the profile of sales. Definitely.
Henrik, thank you very, very much.